Hello, my name is Emily Arthington, and this is my capstone project. My capstone project is going to be covering the film Labyrinth and dissecting character analysis, costumes, and set design, and how it all plays into the themes that are represented within this movie. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys really enjoy. From goblins and babies to shoulder pads and mullets, the iconic film Labyrinth has captivated fantasy films for decades.
Produced in 1986 by Jim Henson, following his success with the Muppets, Labyrinth is known for elements of dark fantasy and its rock star Goblin King, played by David Bowie.
But what makes Labyrinth so iconic? How does the set and costume design represent the 80s? And what do the main characters represent? And how does one dance the magic dance? Find out all this and more right here on The Fantasy 4. If you've never seen the Labyrinth film before, don't worry, I'm about to give you the rundown. One evening, Sarah returns home to find herself stuck yet again babysitting her little brother Toby, while her father and her stepmother go out on the town. Resentfully, Sarah wishes out loud that her brother would just be taken away by goblins, and to her horror, he is. The Goblin King appears and tells Sarah that her little brother will be lost forever unless she can unriddle the labyrinth, leading to the Goblin King's castle, where Toby is being held. She has exactly 13 hours to complete her task, or the baby will be turned into a goblin. The book closely follows the script of the movie. Sarah encounters goblins, other creepy characters, befriends a few, and makes it to the castle just in time to save the day.
Hearing the name Jim Henson may not ring a bell, but bring up the Muppets and I'm sure almost everyone will be reminded of his famous puppets. An article from the New York Times notes on Henson's work by stating he created Kermit the Frog, the first character in what's become the Muppet universe, for a generation of American children, 30 years ago at a local television station in Washington, D.C.
One of the most memorable aspects of Labyrinth is the puppets. In the documentary Inside the Labyrinth, we get an inside look into the complicated production of this film. The 80s was a time when puppets were coming into play more and more in the film industry. In Labyrinth, there were almost more than 48 puppets on set, meaning that there were around 50 puppeteers working at a time. To handle this large group, the set had to be completely customized. Puppeteers would have to be in the air, behind walls, and even under floors.
Considering it was the 80s, Labyrinth had some impressive special effects, almost all of which had to be done manually and not edited in. An article by Gwen Watkins goes on to explain just how difficult these effects were. Further invisible work was required to control the puppet characters, most notably Hoggle, the grumpy goblin sidekick for whom Brian Henson provided a voice. The most complex animatronic puppet ever created at the time, Hoggle required one puppeteer inside his costume and four more, including Henson, to move his expressive face, two performing the mouth and jaw and another two working on the eyes and eyebrows, all using radio controls. After weeks of rehearsal, the Hoggle team worked in perfect harmony and characters' performances seemed effortless.
One aspect of the Labyrinth film that stands out among the rest is the fashion design.
The ballroom scene is where we're all drawn into both the magic of the 80s and the glamour of the Labyrinth. During the ballroom scene, we see our main character, Sarah, played by Jennifer Connelly, is in a beautiful ball gown. The dress was created by designers Brian Farad and Ellis Flight. One key detail of the dress is its pinkish green cellophane fabric that we see on both the top layer of the skirt and the sleeves. If you haven't already noticed that it is in the 80s film, one look at Sarah's sleeves is all you need to remember. Sarah's sleeves reflect the fashion during the 80s. The bigger the better. The designers used inspiration from the 1830s romantic period for this look. To create this almost balloon effect, they layered the sleeves in a way that supported each other and created a full and round shape.
Similar to Sarah, Jareth's costume also has some important details to mention. During the ballroom scene, we see Jareth sharply dressed in a royal blue coat adorned with jewels. This costume represents the pure vision of Jareth and his conquest to win the affection of Sarah. Both Jareth's attitude and appearance showcase an almost soft side to his bad boy personality. Jareth embodies the attraction to rock stars during the 80s. During the 80s, rock stars like Prince lured in their fans with this bad boy rock star attitude.
As the movie progresses, so does Jareth's character. During the staircase scene, we see a more intense Jareth. Jareth is no longer in his ballroom attire, and his frustration is reflected in this attire. He wears a tailored red velvet undershirt, black tailored vest, and bone detailing. His attire is revealed that he is passionate and dedicated. In this scene, he is focused on winning over Sarah as he's revealed all that he has done for her.
Aside from fashion influence, the ballroom scene actually reveals to us the character of Sarah and what she represents.
An article by T.S. Miller dissects Sarah and how her character represents a sexual awakening and how she is trapped in this fantasy world. When Sarah is transported into the ballroom, she is in almost dreamlike state.
Miller states in his article, one of Sarah's chief temptations within the fantastic labyrinth is itself paradoxically an escape into fantasy. He then explains further by saying, furthermore, the most sinister trial in the labyrinth comes when Sarah eats a worm-ridden peach that the Goblin King has enchanted. This spell carries her off into a fantasy grotesque masquerade ball that further demonstrates how fantastic is bound up with her incipient sexuality. The sexual aspect of this film is extremely prevalent. Looking at our main character, Jareth, it is apparent that there is nothing lacking in the nether region, so it's kind of a interesting choice for a children's movie that Jim Henson chose to stuff it to make it even more prominent. But we also have to remember this was the 80s, and the 80s was a very weird time in the film industry. There were a couple other weird things that went on in the movie. At one point, Jim Henson wanted her to kiss David Bowie, and David Bowie is playing a 300-year-old Goblin King, and she's about 15 in this movie, but it's very hard to kind of put all of the sexual imagery into one whole section, so I'm going to give you guys the main points. You would be surprised in a children's movie at just how many there are, but I'm just going to cover the most prominent examples for you guys. Like I stated earlier, David Bowie is definitely packing in this movie, and I did say this was both a creative decision by Jim Henson. Okay, so why did he do that? Well, we also have to take into account that this film is probably from Sarah's point of view. Now, what does that mean? So we know that Sarah is a teenage girl. She's coming into this realm of becoming a woman, discovering herself, sexuality, having sex, all of those things. And Jareth is her interpretation of a man. Like, she kind of created this fantasy of Jareth. So we have to understand that this is most likely from her point of view. Is the Goblin King actually look like that, or is it a dramatization of what Sarah thinks Jareth should look like? In another scene, we see Jareth give Hoggle a peach. Just going to use this as an example. Gives him a peach and tells Hoggle that he needs to give it to Sarah so she can eat it. So does this, guys, remind you of anything? Give you a couple seconds. Okay. Hades and Persephone. So in this Greek mythology, Persephone eats a couple pomegranates, but then she is destined to stay in the underworld with Hades for a couple months. So it's kind of like Jareth is inviting Sarah to live in this labyrinth with him. And the peach is kind of this, almost a way of like transporting her into his fantasy as well. Another answer I would have accepted would be Adam and Eve. And that story, most people know, it is when Eve eats the apple, then she becomes extremely aware of herself, her surroundings. She knows that she's naked and stuff. So we could interpret it that way, how she's kind of, if she eats this apple, she's stepping into this very feminine, this almost womanly role. If you didn't get either of those answers, there is a 300-word discussion board that's due tonight, 11:59, so please stay on your toes and get these answers right. The peach can also symbolize fertility in Chinese culture, so we can also kind of look at this as a way of Jareth seducing her, kind of being like, hey, kind of flirting with her. So we can also interpret it as him kind of giving her femininity. He's kind of inviting her to step into this very womanly role. And that's the main thing about this peach. This peach is an invitation to Sarah, okay? Whether it be stepping into her femininity, womanhood, a sexual kind of thing. It is a very open-ended peach. Now, when Sarah eats this peach, where is she transported to? The ballroom scene. Thank you, guys. I know that you guys got that answer right. You guys are so great. Is this the fourth time I'm talking about this ballroom scene, my project? Yes, and it is my project, so I will overanalyze what I want. Okay, so when she is transported into this, she is almost awestruck by Jareth. The whole scene, she's like looking at this man. It is like, damn girl, like you created him. Let's get a move on. So basically, she doesn't necessarily realize the full extent of her actions. That's why we see her so awestruck. She's been wanting this masculine man to just come and sweep her away. But now that she's actually there, homegirl is a little stressed, you know. She's kind of looking around. She's seeing, take one look at the people around this ballroom. Hey, even I don't want to be around them, okay? They're a little freaky. They're a little weird. They've got these weird masks on. It's very weird. So she's very stressed out. But she's very timid towards him, but she's also looking for him. Like you can see her, she's looking for Jareth. And she kind of realizes she's in over her head. When they're dancing, there's a scene where it's going back and forth between Jareth and Sarah, and you can see she's getting even more stressed out and she can't take anymore. She's got to leave. She's got to smash this orb. It kind of looks like that bean from Chicago. I don't even know if that's still there, but anyway, she smashes it and then she's back to where she was. So the main thing about this scene that I absolutely love is that it is showing that Sarah isn't ready to step into this role that Jareth wants her to step into. In conclusion, Labyrinth is an amazing fantasy film, and it really just is a great example of how we can analyze characters, costumes, sets, and just really dig into the meanings of these movies and just the themes and the motifs that they represent. Few final things. If Jareth was real, he would have absolutely loved the new season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Why do you ask me that? Well, take 2 looks at him. This man can put together a outfit, and he's very feminine like David Bowie. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming on this little fun journey with me, and I hope that you guys watch this movie. It's a great movie. I really do recommend everyone to go see it. All right. Thank you guys.